Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yes Nana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasudanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Shodanandana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Thank you, Ramapatinta. Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotarshat Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. His confounder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotarshat Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, text 41. Dravida Prabhu, if you could.
Yes, but this is the last one of the proses. We have to figure out how we're going to write the verse because we lost our, so for tomorrow. Okay. Karma balim avalambya tata apada katanchin narakad vimuktaha punarapyevam sangsarad vanivartamano nadaloka sartam upayati evam upadigatopi.
Should I read the word for word?
Let me read it quick.
Okay.
Karma balim, the creeper of fruitive activities. Avalambya, taking shelter of. Tataha, from that. Apadaha, dangerous or miserable condition. Katanchit, somehow or other. Narakat, from the hellish condition of life. Vimuktaha, being freed. Punaha, api, again. Evam, in this way. Sangsara advani, on the path of material existence. Vartamanaha, existing. Nadaloka sa'artam, the field of self-interested material activities. Upayati, he enters. Evam, thus upadi, above in the higher planetary systems. Gata api, although promoted.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. Translation. When the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruitive activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems, and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to the lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. Purport. In this regard, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmananda Bhamiti Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Kuru Krishna Prasadi Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. Madhya Alila 19:151. Even if one wanders for many millions of years from the time of creation until the time of annihilation, one cannot get free from the path of material existence unless one receives shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. As a monkey takes shelter of the branch of a banyan tree and thinks he is enjoying, the conditioned soul, not knowing the real interest of his life, takes shelter of the path of karma kanda, fruitive activities. Sometimes he is elevated to the heavenly planets by such activities, and sometimes he again descends to earth. This is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Brahmanda Bharamiti. However, if by Krishna's grace one is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of the Guru, by the mercy of Krishna he receives lessons on how to execute devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In this way he receives a clue of how to get out of this continuous struggle up and down within the material world. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is that one should approach a spiritual master. The Vedas declare, Tad Vigyanartam Sagurum Ivabhijachit. Mukunda Upanishad 1.2.12. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead advises Tadviri Pranipatena Pariparshena Sevaya Upadikshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21 gives similar advice. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyate Yageshu Shreya Uttamam Shabde Paricha Nishnatam Brahmanyapadashmashriyam. Any person who seriously desires to achieve real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of his spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual masters. Similarly, Vishwanath Chakravarti, a great Vaishnav, also advises Yasya Prasadad Bhagavad Prasada. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of Krishna. This is the same advice given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. This is essential. One must come to Krishna consciousness, and therefore one must take shelter of a pure devotee. Thus one can become free from the clutches of matter. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Janashalakaya Chakshur Unmiltam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. When the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruitive activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to the lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. So today the theme will be spiritual masters. And I wanted to speak about what it means to be a disciple, taking initiation, and about gurus, spiritual master. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya of ISKCON, and he is also the preeminent Shiksha Guru for ISKCON. So the Shastras, they enjoin that before we take a guru, we should study him carefully to find out whether we can surrender to him. We should not accept a guru suddenly out of fanaticism. That is very dangerous. The guru should also study the person who wants to become a disciple to see if he is fit. That is the way a relationship is established between the guru and disciple. In Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami, it is directed that the spiritual master and the disciple must meet together at least for 1 year, so that the disciple may understand that here is a person whom I can accept as my guru. And the guru also can see that here is a person who is fit for becoming my disciple. Then the business is nice. So therefore the process is, before taking or accepting a guru, one must hear from him at least for 1 year. And when he's convinced that here is actually a guru who can teach me, then you can accept him as guru. Don't accept whimsically. Just like in the material world, before we decide on something important, what schools to go to, what car to buy, what neighborhood to move into, you do a research. You check the reviews, the safety features, how many miles per gallon, how much is tuition, etc. So similarly, when it comes to choosing a guru, one should take it seriously. Because unlike families that are broken or separated at the time of death, the spiritual master has a disciple life after life after life. So when approaching a spiritual master, one's mood should be of submission, surrender, and humility. And why is this important? When someone is asking questions with submission, surrender, and humility, his heart is more receptive. When he receives those answers, his humble heart is more fertile to accept answers in the right way. Just like a field, if the field is very barren, dry, and hard, and you may have the best of seeds, organic, from sprouts, or wherever people go. But if the land is barren, that seed will not grow. Why? Because the land is no good. But if the field is fertile, and he put those seeds in, they will grow very nicely. They become fruitful. Similarly, when we put forward questions to our seniors, when we have a receptive and humble heart, we will be able to understand and absorb the teachings better. So one should have a mood of submission, surrender, and humility. But unfortunately, this mood of surrender and humility is lacking in today, especially the youth. Kali Yuga's mantra is, do whatever you want because you only live once. But that is not the fact. Our actions have reactions, and we don't only live once. And this is due to a lack of knowledge. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 23, text 7, for spiritual advancement, the easiest path is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and serve him with heart and soul. That is the secret of success. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasada. By receiving the grace of the spiritual master, one receives the grace of the Supreme Lord. A sincere disciple, simply by serving a bona fide spiritual master, can achieve all the mercy of the Lord and the spiritual master simultaneously. A disciple should always remain a fool before a spiritual master. In the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself presented the perfect example of how to be a disciple. A spiritual master knows very well how to engage each disciple in a particular duty. But if a disciple, thinking himself more advanced than his spiritual master, gives up his orders and acts independently, he checks his own spiritual progress. Every disciple must consider himself completely unaware of the science of Krishna and must always be ready to carry out the orders of the spiritual master to become competent in Krishna consciousness. A disciple should always remain a fool before a spiritual master. And there's many great examples, and one famous example is when Arjuna, he finally surrenders to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna says, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. And another example is when Sanatan Goswami met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. First, Sanatan fell at the feet of the Lord and with great humility asked about his own real identity. Who am I? Why is there so much suffering? What is the solution? This is the process of accepting a spiritual master. One should approach a spiritual master, humbly submit to him, and then inquire from him about one's spiritual progress. The Lord was pleased by Sanatan's submissive behavior. So there's a verse. Guru Krishna Rupa Hana Shastrena Pramatni Guru Rupi Krishna Kripa Karina Bhakta Gani. According to all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. And the relationship of a devotee with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Krishna says, one should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. And also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that one honor the spiritual master as being on an equal status with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shakshardarti Vena Samasta. In spite of all these instructions, if one considers the spiritual master an ordinary human being, one is doomed. So there are different types of guru. There's Diksha Guru, and then there's Shiksha Gurus. So the Diksha Guru is one that gives instructions. He initiates and officiates connection to Parampara. He gives a spiritual name, he gives the mantra, the guru, mantra guru, and then he accepts the disciple's vows. He removes the disciple's sinful reactions at initiation. And the guru that gives instructions or guidance is also called the Shiksha Guru. So there is only one Diksha Guru, initiation Guru, and then there can be many Shiksha Gurus. And in a letter to Jadur Rani in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada says, the spiritual master accepts the sinful activities of the disciples from the first initiation. I may give initiation very easily, but what can I do? I am prepared to go to hell for the service of the Lord. And so in the CC, Adya Leela, I first offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and all my instructing spiritual masters, so one and many. Purport. A devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master, because in the scriptures, acceptance of one or more than one is always forbidden. There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. The guru who first initiates one with the Maha Mantra is to be known as the initiator, and the saints who give instructions for progressive advancement in Krishna consciousness are called instructing spiritual masters. The initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and quoted in purport in the C.C. Madhya Leela, unless one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, all his devotional activities are useless. A person who is not properly initiated can descend again into the animal species. It's pretty heavy. And in the Nectar of Devotion, it says, Diksha means the initiation to begin transcendental activities. The connection with the spiritual master is called initiation. From the date of initiation by the spiritual master, the connection between Krishna and a person cultivating Krishna consciousness is established. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Evam parampara patram. Krishna confirms that the supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession. Guru, disciple, guru, disciple. And so the guru, he does not accept respect from his disciple for his personal self, but conveys this respects to Krishna. The guru offers the same respects to his guru, and his guru offers respects to his. And so it goes all the way to Krishna. Thus the mercy of Krishna comes down through the parampara system. And the respects offered to Krishna is offered through the parampara. One has to learn to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this way. And one should not proudly think that one can understand the transcendental loving service of the Lord simply by reading books. One must accept a Vaishnav Guru, Adau Guru Ashtrayam. And then, by questions and answers, one should gradually learn what pure devotional service to Krishna is. This is called parampara system. And in a letter to Tushta Krishna, Srila Prabhupada writes, I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual master and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy. Keep trained up very rigidly, and then you are a bona fide guru, and you can accept disciples on the same principle. But as a matter of etiquette, it is custom that during the lifetime of your spiritual master, you bring the prospective disciples to him. And in his absence or disappearance, you can accept disciples without any limitation. So if the guru is still on the planet, you should not accept disciples. You bring them to your guru. And the supreme spiritual master is Krishna, who is therefore known as Chaitanya Guru. This refers to the super soul who is sitting in everyone's heart. He helps from within, and as stated in Bhagavad Gita, he sends a spiritual master who helps from without. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders unto the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as himself. And Chanakya Pandit, he says, excessive leniency will produce many faults, while strictness will build good character. Therefore be strict, not lenient with the son or disciple. And Prabhupada, he tells the story of a thief and a murderer who was about to be killed by the government for his crimes. And as one of his last requests, he asked to see his mother. Do you guys know this story? You know about it? As his mother came close, he leaned over and bit her ear. The criminal exclaimed, "Mother, in my childhood, when I used to steal, you indulged me and did not punish me. Because of this leniency, I have come to this awful end." So a bona fide spiritual master directly points out the foolishness of a disciple. A person who is puffed up by so-called education and who has no humility does not seek the protection of a bona fide spiritual master. He thinks that he does not require a spiritual master and that he can achieve the highest perfection by his own efforts. Those who are under the spell of material energy do not follow the instructions of the disciplic succession, but try to manufacture something of their own and thereby step outside the spheres of Vedanta study. A bona fide spiritual master must always condemn such independent mental speculation. So this is the qualities of a disciple. The servant or disciple of the spiritual master should be free from false prestige, never considering himself to be the doer. He should feel enmity toward no one. He should be active and never lazy, and he should give up all sense of proprietorship. He should be endowed with feelings of loving relationship toward the spiritual master, and should never become deviated or bewildered. The servant or disciple should always desire advancement in spiritual understanding and should always avoid useless conversation. In a letter for Jayapataka Maharaj, when asked, "Is it true that the spiritual master remains in the material universe until all his disciples are transferred to the spiritual sky?" Srila Prabhupada responds, "The answer is yes, this is the rule. Therefore, every student should be very much careful not to commit any offense which will be detrimental to his promotion to the spiritual kingdom. And thereby the spiritual master has to incarnate again to deliver him." So when you realize this, you don't want your spiritual master to come back again. So we are trying to help him as much as we can. The instructions given to the disciple by the spiritual master at the time of initiation should be strictly followed. That will make one advance to the spiritual path. So when you take initiation, you make 4 vows, actually 5 vows. Who knows what they are? Prakash? Okay. No meat eating? No gambling, Stevie? No illicit sex. And Joseph? No intoxication. And we make a vow to chant 16 rounds every day. So these are the vows that we take at initiation. When the Lord was invoking his Sudarshan Chakra and Lord Nityananda Prabhu was imploring him to forgive the 2 brothers, Jagai and Madhai, both the brothers fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and begged his pardon for their gross behavior. The Lord was also asked by Nityananda Prabhu to accept these repenting souls, and the Lord agreed to accept them on one condition: that they henceforward completely give up all their sinful habits, and the kind Lord accepted them and did not again refer to their past misdeeds. This is the specific kindness of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, no one can say he is free from sin. It is impossible for anyone to say this. But Lord Chaitanya accepts all kinds of sinful persons on the one condition that they promise not to indulge in sinful habits after being spiritually initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. Giving up the regulative principles and living according to one's whims is compared to a mad elephant, which by force uproots the Bhakti Lata and breaks it to pieces. In this way, the Bhakti Lata shrivels up. Such an offense is especially created when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master. And this is called Guru Avagya. As soon as one is deviated from the instructions of the spiritual master, the uprooting of the Bhakti Lata begins, and gradually all the leaves dry up. After being initiated and receiving the orders of the spiritual master, the disciple should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or orders of the spiritual master, and should not allow himself to be distracted by anything else. And we saw this in Srila Prabhupada. He had faith in the Bhagavatam, and he had faith in his spiritual master's instructions. He was always thinking about it. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. So when the Guru says something, we should hear very attentively. The disciple shouldn't consider whether he is going back home, back to Godhead. His first business should be to execute the order of the spiritual master. I was in Balboa Park, and this Christian man, he came to my table, and we had a nice conversation. And at the end, he gave me a $1 million bill. Of course, it was fake, but on the back, it said it was a $1 million question. After this life, will you go to heaven or hell? So I showed this note to Dayanidhi Prabhu, and he laughed. He said, we don't care about heaven or hell. We want to go back home, back to Krishna, back to Godhead. So heaven is the desired destination for most people, but for us, it's not so important. We just want to serve Guru and Krishna. Thus, a disciple should always meditate on the order of the spiritual master, and that is perfectional meditation. And what does it mean to be a disciple? To accept a spiritual master means to voluntarily agree to abide by the rules and regulations given by a great personality. This is what being a disciple means, to voluntarily agree. Even at the inconvenience of my personal comfort, I must abide by the orders of my spiritual master. And there's a thing called Guru Tyaga, or rejection of the spiritual master. According to revealed scriptures, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. A teacher or spiritual master is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position of a guru or spiritual master. Srimad Bhagavatam. If the guru becomes attached to sense gratification, loses his sense of duty, and follows a degraded path, a path other than devotional service to the Lord, he should be rejected. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. So I'll share some Sankirtan stories. In La Jolla Cove, I met this lady, and she took a few books. And one of those books was The Science of Self-Realization. And 2 hours before packing up, she came to my table. She actually rushed to my table. And she said, I read 10 pages of this book, and I loved it. And she said, I would like to get more. So I gave her a stack, and I asked her, who is this for? And she says, for my friends. So Srila Prabhupada's books, they're transcendental. They make perfect sense, and it can benefit whoever reads them. Okay? Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, I just wanted to let you know there is one question pending on the Zoom.
Okay. Do you have any in-house questions? Yes, Bhakta Tyler. Prabhuji.
But everything you said was so informative. I resonated with all of it. It was really good. I guess I'm just thinking about that idea of the spiritual master takes on everybody's karma. I understood that, but then they have to keep reincarnating until their disciples go back to Godhead. So if you have a disciple who's particularly foolish or rascally or something like that, and he just can't get it right, your spiritual master's coming back solely to deliver that jiva each life after life. I mean, think of that task. Like, what if you're like, all right, you're 51%, next life 52%, next life 53%. Wait, you're at 48%. Oh, okay, it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's a big duty. Is there anything you can say about that? I mean, I kind of just realized that based on what you shared.
I I asked a similar question to that, and someone told me that the guru is protected by Krishna. Yeah. So it's the disciples' reactions. Therefore, a spiritual master should really see if the disciple is fit to be given shelter. And a real disciple, he understands how kind and merciful his spiritual master is. We don't want to cause any harm, or you can say a stain on the spiritual master. So we should try to be a very nice disciple.
So then are we under the spiritual master's protection until we become so purified we then become under Krishna's protection? If the spiritual master is under Krishna's protection, you know, he's like our training wheels. He's like our, you know, our temporary shield until we're given like the shield of Krishna. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like we don't have protection. He's our gateway to that protection. And then when we purify ourselves enough under his guidance, then we get Krishna's protection. So yeah, he's kind of like a bridge.
Connection.
Yeah, okay. Really, really well done. Thank you for focusing so much on that aspect today in your class.
Thank you. We can't reach Krishna on our own efforts. We have to go through a spiritual master. Maybe Balaram Prabhu has something to say.
I have a little comment, yeah. Well, the connection with the spiritual master, we're always, you know, subordinate. We're always under his shelter, even in, you could say, perfection. So it's not like, well, oh, I became perfect, so now I don't need you anymore. Because this is like the impersonalists. Like Prabhupada, one time he was walking off a boat there in Mayapur. Prabhupada was walking off the boat, and then he took one of his disciples' his arm, and then the disciple helped him off, and then Prabhupada pushed him. And then this disciple was a little surprised. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is just like the Mayavadis. They accept the help of their guru, and then once they attain perfection, then they shoo him away, they push him away. Or the examples like of a ladder. Like you use a ladder to climb on, and then when you reach the top, you just throw the ladder down, you know, and like you don't need the ladder anymore. Or you could say in a kind of graphic way, people, they worship deities, and then they have an idea, oh, now I've become Bhagavan, now I've become Krishna, now I've become the deity, so let me break the deity, you know. Sorry, but so yeah, we're always under the shelter of the guru, and so it's not like we become perfect and then we give up the shelter, but we always have the shelter. So anyways, it's just a comment on that.
Anyone else? Oh, okay. Prakash?
Can a spiritual master reject a disciple? No.
Can what?
The spiritual master, like if a disciple is rascal.
So I heard that the spiritual master will tell the disciple or the aspiring disciple, wait another year. He can postpone the initiation until he's ready.
This is
or like reject.
After, yeah.
I think he has the right to do that. Dravida Prabhu, yes.
In Prabhupada's time, I'm not going to name names. I don't like to name names. But there was two devotees who had, they weren't newly initiated. They were a few years in the movement. Everyone was only a few years in the movement, but they were also. And they started, they met with Prabhupada in LA, and they were questioning one part of the Krishna book statement, which you can see why. You know, it's one of these things. Well, I can't understand how the proper attitude. I don't understand it, but it's it's there. Prabhupada said it, so I'm not going to doubt it. You know, unless it's a typo, unless I find some other thing. You know, So this was in the early Krishna book. I think it may still be there. It was a statement about the number of bodyguards that Ugusain had. You look it up. It's in the latter part of the Krishna book. I think there was like 30 trillion, something like that. And these devotees came and said, Srila Prabhupada, how can we present this in college? And because they were doing some college preaching. We can't present. They were doubting it. They were flippant about the whole thing. It doesn't make any sense. Where are they going to stand? There's not enough room on the earth. That type of thing. Maybe it was quadrillion. I forget. Anyway. And so Prabhupada was trying to explain to them, you can't look at it materially, but they were doubtful, and their whole attitude was just like, this is a. They weren't saying it explicitly, but the attitude was this was a reason to doubt everything, So they had been initiated. These are all both initiated devotees. So at one point, Prabhupada said, "It's better if you go away and not be Krishna conscious." You know what I mean? In other words, he was saying, "Get out," in a polite way. And so that was an instance where he was rejecting them, because there were other things that they were saying that were offensive. And so it was, the answer is that in some rare cases they can be rejected. I mean there's, but sometimes there's mitigating factors. Like you remember when Lord Chaitanya goes to South India, first time, he's accompanied by this devotee named Krishna Das. And Krishna Das allowed himself to be allured by the Bhattataris who would do this. They would had prostitutes, and they would lure him. So he was allured. So Lord Chaitanya had to go save him. So he went and he found him. I think he was pulling his hair and getting him away. And they all attacked Lord Chaitanya, these Bhattataris, with their weapons. They came, But Lord Chaitanya, he's God after all. By his mystic power, he made them, the weapons fell from their hands and started slicing their own bodies up. So the other Bhattataris saw it, they all ran away. So he then brought this Krishna Das back. Now when he got back to Jagannath Puri, he described what happened and said that I can't see him anymore, But the devotee said, somehow we have to try to keep him in the service, I mean, he was very repentant, He said, you just go to Navadvip now, and you bring this prasadam to Sachi Devi, and you take care of her there, and keep doing that service. So he kept in the service. So it's a that's a special case, but there can be cases like that, where the person becomes so rebellious and so doubtful that they're harmful to all the other devotees. See, that's the other problem, is that they become agents for dissension within the community of devotees. So it happens in very rare cases where the disciple will reject a spiritual master will reject the disciple.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. Okay, Jum.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, thank you very much. Dandavat pranams. Prabhu, my question is, how selfless and devotional is the happiness that I derive from serving my spiritual master?
I think this is a personal realization that one should have. If the disciple is sincere, as long as his guru is happy, he also becomes happy. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. So yeah. So if we get the mercy of the spiritual master, we also get the mercy of Krishna. And like I was telling somebody yesterday, Krishna is God. He's the creator of everything. So when Krishna is pleased, that becomes success in life. That's the only thing we should chase after. We shouldn't chase for material achievements and this is that. As long as Krishna is happy, then that's success. And if the guru is happy, then we can also consider that success.
And we can also consider that the happiness that I am deriving from serving my spiritual master is not material. It is spiritual and genuine.
Yes, that's correct.
And I am allowed to that.
Of course.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.